Hi there and welcome to this third in the series of videos, A Beginner's Guide to Music Direction in Musical Theatre. Today we're going to be looking at marking up the score and those dreaded auditions. Preparing for auditions, choosing the audition pieces, the process itself and reaching decisions. Don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button below so you can be informed when further videos are released. Ask any questions in the comments box. I want to hear from you. Okay, my name's Rob Parrish. Let's make a start. What do I mean by marking up the score? Well, the primary reason is to ensure that we, as the people responsible for the music, doesn't forget what has already been taught during rehearsals. Let me explain. There's nothing more frustrating than being taught by someone who isn't prepared. Throughout the rehearsal process, and especially when teaching choral numbers, there are many decisions that a music director will make to clarify their intentions. It may be something as simple as who sings what line, or it may be something more complicated, such as altos, you need to sing the harmony written on the second system or stave at this point. Marking up your score with such things ensures you are consistent in your teaching, rehearsal to rehearsal. So, what kind of markings do I use? I like to identify musical sections. This needn't be marking each 16-bar phrase, but certainly areas of the music where there is a tempo change. During your preparation for rehearsals, you need to have a clear idea of the section's tempo. This will also determine how one should beat a particular passage of the music or musical section and mark these in the score. Decide on how you will beat certain rals, etc., moving from a 4-beat to an 8-beat bar, for instance. I make sure I've highlighted in some way specific tempo changes. Then, especially when conducting a musical performance, I make sure I am looking at and therefore cueing every vocal entry. One of the things that does and can often go wrong during a performance is a performer forgetting the lyrics. As a matter of habit, I always tend to sing along, or should I say mime along, all vocals. This way, should any performer forget their lyric, I am there to prompt them immediately and most importantly, without hesitation. On occasions, I would also mark specific instrumental entries. This can sometimes be requested by a particular musician that may have had a significant amount of music where they have just been counting empty bars and is looking to the conductor to confirm a specific musical entry. Make sure you start to learn cue lines. Hopefully in time, this will become second nature during the rehearsal process, and just as importantly, make sure your cast know which lines are musical cue lines. Similarly, warning lines in your script need marking. These are the lines that prompt you and the band or orchestra to prepare to play. Think about how you will start each music number, the counting. As part of our aim for clarity, all members of the band and sometimes technical crew need to know exactly when the music will start. Your counting will also act as a device to determine tempo. Depending on the tempo of the music, it may be as simple as a 3-4 as a counting. In more up-tempo numbers, it might be a 1, 2, 3, 4. However you intend to start a number, mark it in your score. This will ensure you always give the same counting cue. There are numerous other things you could do as part of marking up your score. Look online. It could be dynamic changes. It could be where you want the chorus or the soloist to breathe. Lots of useful advice is online. But a clearly marked up score that is incidentally mirrored in your accompanying score, should you have one, can almost act as a reference throughout the rehearsal period. It's useful then always to have plenty of soft pencils and post-it notes to hand. Let's move on now to the process of auditions. It goes without saying that by now you should be well acquainted with the score, but as part of your pre-audition preparation, you should have also thoroughly read the script and understand the characters required. You should understand the singing voice and how it should match the character. A villain, for instance, wouldn't necessarily have a light, quaint vocal sound. If you are in any doubt about the role and how it should be interpreted, discuss this with your director to ensure you are both looking for the same interpretation. As part of the process of preparing for auditions, we need to ask the following questions. Firstly, who is deciding on the casting? Well, I would like to think that with the vast majority of groups would include the production team. And I know some groups like to have a member of the committee in attendance when casting, seemingly to show fairness. This is fine. Whether you choose to have an accompanist also present is an individual decision. Secondly, are the audition pieces to be from the production itself? Well, unless one is auditioning to become a member of the group, where I feel it would be fine for the auditionee themselves to choose what they're going to sing, if I'm auditioning for a specific role in a production, I very much want to hear the auditionee singing the number they will be required in that production itself. Is there to be a dance audition? Obviously, this is very much dependent on whether the production itself requires dancing, and this is likely to be decided upon by the choreographer and or director. Again, something that may be decided upon by the makeup of the group or the musical production in question would be whether or not formal auditions would be suitable, or whether the audition process should be decided through a workshop. Workshops can be very hard work. Although it may be more comforting for all auditionees to be together, if you have a leading female role and you have in excess of, say, 10 auditionees, each of which in an ideal world needs to be partnered up with their opposite number within the story, this can take a considerable amount of time. Personally, I prefer formal auditions, one at a time, and then perhaps later on in the audition process to bring shortlisted individuals together to work with other actors they would be partnered with on stage. Of course, auditions that are run individually would require someone available to read in the libretto or script audition. This will also need to be arranged prior to auditions. Should auditions be timetabled? Well, if you have a large cast and many auditions to work through, it is sometimes advantageous to see all those auditioning for a particular role one after the other. And therefore a notice may go out saying all those wishing to audition for such and such a role, that audition will take place at a given time. Finally, it may be worth giving some consideration as to who would have the final say or casting vote. On many occasions, I as music director may have had a preference for one individual and the director a preference for another. There's no easy answer to this question, and it may be down to compromise. But in the hope that the production team is a cohesive group of individuals keen to do their very best, this may not be a problem. Given that we want auditionees to sing something from the production in question, let's now look at choosing suitable audition pieces. What should we look for when choosing audition pieces? Obviously, if the role itself only has one musical number in the production, that may be an easy decision. It can be more involved if the role has multiple musical numbers, and not least if it is a full sung-through musical. But I like to avoid the obvious. Let me give you an example. When auditioning for the role of Evita, do you really need to hear Don't Cry for Me, Argentina? In this particular example, there are many other musical numbers to choose from. Try and make sure that the piece or pieces you are choosing cover the full musical range of the role. Similarly, it's good practice to ensure the audition covers different moods within the music. A slower, more emotional passage, and certainly one that includes any challenging vocal requirements, including modulations or particularly difficult intervals. How do we prepare auditionees for the audition? Should we rehearse these pieces with the company or allow them to prepare themselves? I would very much prefer the latter. It's hoped that those auditioning for a role will have taken the time to study the role, the character, the emotion required in any particular number. By not giving any indication to the auditionee as to how the role should be sung or portrayed, this should indicate how much thought the individual may have put into their audition. It's also useful to see how the individual interprets the character. So we've now reached the day of the audition. I feel it's important to create a relaxed, welcoming atmosphere. Make sure that you're supportive and approachable at all times. Auditioning in front of a small group of people, some of which may be your friends, can sometimes be more nerve-wracking than, say, the first night in front of a live audience. It's important, therefore, to recognise nerves. If there's a vocal, libretto and dance audition, it may be worth considering giving the auditionee the option as to which of these disciplines they would prefer to do first. Having recognised nerves, if you feel this has significantly affected the audition, you may wish to consider repeating the number. Or, if the auditionee has given you a performance that you feel could or should have been interpreted in a different way, then I see no reason why you shouldn't request the vocal audition in this instance to be done a second time, and explaining how you would like it to be delivered the second time. One area that is sometimes overlooked, and especially when considering a large role, would be to ask whether or not the individual concerned has any other commitments. If they have, this could mean their commitment to the production may not be as strong as otherwise it could be, not least in the amount of rehearsals they would be able to attend. As a music director, and particularly with a group that I'm unfamiliar with, I would use a specific grading and note-taking routine, which I'd like to share with you. As a musician, I'm not necessarily a dancer. As a musician, I'm not necessarily an acting coach or director. However, I try to give a score to each of these three disciplines in order for me able to compare each individual that has auditioned for me that day. Grading each discipline and auditionee out of, say, 10 helps me at the conclusion of the auditions to be able to compare one individual against another. This particularly helps if you are new to a group and unaware of the individual's previous work on stage. Together with this, making notes such as blue t-shirt against someone's name can act as a reference when discussing the individual with your fellow audition panel decision makers. This may sound like quite a blunt instrument, but it really works. And now we come to the point in the audition process where we need to make a decision. Now, I'm a strong believer in when considering who is playing opposite who, size really does matter. As unfortunate as it may sound, a 6'5" actor against a 5'3" actor isn't ideal. I also feel that age is really important. Although it can be easier to make an actor look older, the same isn't true when trying to make actors look younger. Do we really need a 57-year-old Maria von Trapp? There will, of course, come a time when a director wants an actor and the musical director wants a singer and the choreographer wants a dancer. I would like to think that this is usually decided upon within the context of the musical production itself. In other words, there are certain roles that require actors that can sing. Similarly, there are roles where singers need to act, and dare I say it, where actors can get away with some dancing. And finally, it may be worth establishing who informs the company of the results and how. In conclusion to this section, I am always slightly uncomfortable when I hear an auditionee state that they are only interested in being cast in this specific role. This could be seen as a mild form of blackmail, but also begs the question, is it always the best person for the role? For me, the answer is a definite yes. So that brings us to the end of part 3 in this series. In the next video, we're going to look at what is sometimes known as note-bashing rehearsals, keeping your company engaged during rehearsals and working with printable actors. I hope you'll join me then.